Hello, chaps and chapesses. Good afternoon. Nice to see you all again. And this afternoon, we are going to talk further about Iceland because it's that time of year where we are moving into our rebooking for 2026, which is already begun, first right of refusal, and that is going pretty strong. But I think firstly, I'm going to give you a quick brief of the overall season. A lot of people have sort of commented on how the season went, and it was a good season. I wouldn't say it was the most fabulous season I've ever seen, but neither by any circumstances was it a bad season or a very, very tough season. I mean, the catch stats were a little bit down, pretty much across the board of the country as a whole. And there's been, I mean, as you can imagine, there's been so much conjecture as to why that might have happened, whether, this has happened or that's happened. And as soon as nobody has the answers, everybody comes up with their own. But probably one of the most feasible theories that I've come across so far is a lot of the scientists believe that the cold weather that came on the year before meant that the smolts had not gone to sea when they should have, and had in fact gone back to sea considerably later. And that has a knock-on effect, meaning that a lot of those fish will not come back that following season and will have stayed out at sea, presumably getting bigger, and that we shall look forward to welcoming them with open arms in 2026. So fingers crossed for a great season in 2026. So in terms of new things and things which have happened, I mean, this year I went to Heathrow, which was fabulous. Really enjoyed that. Haven't been there for quite a long time. And if you haven't seen the video on Heathrow, then I would highly recommend you have a quick look on the YouTube channel and see if you can find that. It's a very interesting river. It's a West Coast river. It's only for 6 rods. It's a sort of private intact party situation. The food is absolutely outstanding. The river's really interesting because it's broad at the bottom, perfect for a small switch rod, and then tightens up. It's got canyon sections, and then it has char beats at the top. So you can catch salmon, sea trouts, and char all in the same river system. And it's perfect for anybody who's looking for a really good combination of different tactics and techniques. And it does have a good smattering of multi-sea winter fish, which is quite unusual for a West Coast river. So that was really interesting. And off the back of that, in the 2026 season, we will be leading a number of hosted slots, which are Heathrow and Kjos combinations, because they're only 45 minutes away from one another. Very easy to get to and give you a really good different combination of fishing, if you like, which I think will give people a lot of fun. Really, really good experience, different territories, different tactics, different techniques, different rod setups, which just make the whole thing a more open experience, if you like, and you get a feel for what Iceland fishing is really all about, but still stemming around a lot of that really crystal clear water fishing, small flies, and light tackle, which is really what makes Iceland so special as a salmon fishery. Moving on from that, the news that we put out a couple of weeks ago is that the Stor-Laxá River, which is one of our favorite bigger salmon rivers, has changed how it's going to operate next season. Rather than being broken down into the sort of the main lodge of 6 rods with beats 1, 2, and 3, and then beat 4, the canyon section, being sold separately, the whole operation is going to come down to 8 rods. They're going to extend the lodge, and then everything will be stemmed from there. And half of beat 4 is going to go into the main rotation for those people who want to be adventurous. I mean, beat 4 isn't for everybody by any shape, form, or description. It's a very interesting fishing. I mean, I absolutely loved it, but physically it can be a little bit challenging. It's quite a steep canyon to climb down into, and then you've got to walk your way through the canyon floor up the river system. But what it does do is it's certainly come to light in the last few seasons that if you get a low water year, the fish come straight in and run all the way up through the other beats. And a large proportion of the bigger multi-sea winter fish then go and sit in the canyon. So if that were to happen again, then those fishermen who are now fishing at the main lodge will now have access to those fish, which I think is a really good step forward. I think it'll make it a far more rounded operation. And then for those who want to do the really adventurous stuff, then you can then fish the upper canyon, which, I mean, there's so much of Store Laxau, it still needs exploring. It's an extraordinary river. And it's the upper part slightly looks like a sort of giant has stuck its fingers in the ground and ripped it apart. And this sort of canyon goes up through the middle of it. It's absolutely staggering, but really interesting fishermen. And for those who are looking for a bit of a challenge, don't mind walking, like to walk into really fascinating and exploratory type fishing, that section is definitely going to be something that they are going to want to think about. On the sort of slightly more, I suppose, domestic front, if you like, Laxau and Kjos Lodge is going to renovate all of their bedrooms this winter. So those who are returning there in 2026 will have lovely new bedrooms, which is very exciting, as the leaseholder has been renovating the rest of the lodge over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, which is now, I have to say, magnificent. It's incredibly comfortable. It feels really homely, which I think some lodges are slightly lacking that homely feel. And it's a lovely place to relax and unwind after a long day on the river. And it goes without saying that the rest of the service, food, and every other facility that lodge has will continue as normal. So really looking forward to heading back there next year, as I missed it. I missed it this year because I got struck down by the dreaded lurgy just before I was supposed to go. And I have to say, it's the first time I haven't been back in a number of years, and I really missed it. It is one of my favorite rivers in Iceland, and probably one of my favorite places to be anywhere in the world, quite frankly. But anyway, moving onwards again, let's talk about, a lot of people ask us, where can I go in Iceland to catch big salmon? It is a question that we do get given quite a few times, but it's a hard one to answer because big salmon in Iceland is definitely a relative term if you are comparing it to the likes of Norway, for example. A big salmon in Iceland is anything over 20 pounds. Fish over 35, etc., probably don't exist. Well, certainly not that we've ever seen show up in the catch stats in the last sort of 15, 20 years. But anything over 20, 25 pounds is a real specimen for Iceland. But also you're fishing these rivers in a totally different way. You're not swinging a great 14 or 15 weight double hander across a river system. You're using much more light, refined tackle. And actually, there are a number of rivers which you've got a really good chance at a late teen, early 20-pound fish. And the top of that list is probably Store Laxau, closely followed by Laxau I Adeldal and the North Coast, which has always been renowned for its big salmon. In fact, yes, the last big salmon I caught in Iceland was on that river system. But it is one of those slightly chasing, I don't feel comfortable saying you're going to go and catch big salmon over here, but you definitely have a chance of catching bigger multi-sea winter fish. And other rivers which have always done that are Midfjordará, of course. Midfjordará has always had a very good proportion of multi-sea winter fish, which is one of the things that makes it so incredibly difficult to get onto. It has that perfect blend of big fish, but also still light tackle, small flies, clear water, all the kind of things that make us want to go to Iceland in the first place. And that is why Midfjordará has always been dead man's shoes. But then there's also, funny enough, Norðurá this year produced quite a number of bigger salmons, especially in the early part of the season. So if you're thinking about Norðurá, then you want to be there in June, I would say. Season opens mid-June, but you want to be there in those last two weeks in June. And then, I mean, let's talk about a few of the hidden gems. There are a few hidden gems. One of our favorites is a little tributary of the Adaldal in the north called Miraklist, which is slightly peculiar to pronounce. And it's fascinating because it has the same specimen or species of fish which are running the Adaldal, the big strain of salmon, which then navigate up this tiny little river system and then head up towards a lake. But it's only a 4-rod lodge, and it's also has a really good proportion of trout and char. So it is another of those river systems which you can go and fish all three species if you want to. And we just had a question. As a first trip to Iceland, is a trip focused on trout and char worth it? Yeah, totally. Trout and char fishing is one of those things which have really come to a fore in Iceland, and the trout fishing especially is absolutely phenomenal. It's almost like a sort of backward species of ice age brown trout that live there. And if you were going to go and target brown trout, then there are rivers like the Mini Valalaika, there's the upper part of the Laxaui Adaldal at Laxadal and Mivasvit that flow out of Lake Mvaten. And that is some of the best trout fishing in Europe, period. For dry fly and nymph fishing, for big brown trout, I mean, you need to use 6-pound leader or they'll bite through it. Really good dry fly fishing. And then if you really want to go and test yourself, then you should go and check out Lake Thingvallavatn and Vittlingavatn, which are 2 lake systems. And I mean, you will find brown trout up to 25 pounds in Thingvallavatn. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. How would budget for a trout or straight lead compared to salmon? It's about half. It's considerably less than salmon fishing. A lot of that stems from the lodging aspect of things. For trout operations is probably less glamorous than the salmon operations. It's far more built for trout fishermen. So it's, the food is great, but there's lots of it. It's not overly fancy. You haven't got hotel chefs. So yeah, by all means, really do drop us a line. Be happy to send you some information. We have a separate trout brochure. So just email me at peter@aardvarkmcleod.com and I'll send it through to you. Moving on. So I discussed Miraklist a little bit. Let's talk about the sea trout fishing. Moving on from trout and char, the sea trout is also one of those species which, we lunicidal European British people tend to travel anywhere for migratory fish, and Argentina has always been the focus for sea trout. But Iceland has got some phenomenal sea trout fishing. One of the reasons I go to Laxá and Kjós every year is the fact that I can fish for big sea trout in the meadows section on dry fly and nymph. And when I mean big, I mean 10, 12 pounds. We've had them probably 14. There are bigger fish in there, but I don't think anybody's landed one. And that's phenomenal sea trout fishing. And then you can look at the specific sea trout operations on the south coast, like Battle Hill, which operate 3 or 4 different rivers from one lodge, and you'll cycle around them all. And there are some amazing sea trout opportunities there. And that very much tends to happen in the back end. So the sea trout season really, if they're coming into some of the salmon rivers, then you're looking at later July into August and into September. But the South Coast operations really are 3rd week in August, pushing all the way through to the beginning of October. And it's hardcore sea trout fishing. Those fish are running, they're big, they're brutal. And you may find them on a number of different tactics. So you might be swinging streamers, you might be fishing nymphs, could be any one of them. But yeah, I mean, Battle Hill's been having a cracking season this so far this year, and is cementing its reputation really as a phenomenal sea trout operation, which you don't have to fly all the way to Argentina for. It's only 3 hours away, which considerably more relaxing. I think I'm not going to whittle on too much longer, but I think I'd like to finish really just talking about how it's going for this coming season. So far, we've been very busy on our first right of refusals for the last 2 to 3 weeks. We still don't have all the availability that's coming through. There are still some leases which are being renegotiated. There is still some pricing that's been set, but the ones that we do have, we've gone to our clients. And so far, the rebookings have been very, very strong. Very few people are not going to go back to Iceland next year. And I know it's expensive, but it is kind of good value for money if it is numbers of salmon that you're after, especially when you look at what's going on elsewhere. And it's easy to get to. So if you are interested in going to Iceland next year, now is definitely the time to let us know that you have an interest, and we can start whittling down which kind of river is going to suit you best, whether it's going to be a West Coast river, or a North Coast river, or an East Coast river, whether you are going to be looking at something double-handed or single-handed or clear water or swinging flies, any of those. It gives us a really good idea to whittle it down so we can then come to you with exactly what is going to be the best rivers for you, and then hopefully we can get some space. Another question: if you spend an evening in the capital city, then don't be shy about putting out a sinking line and fly for the multitudes of cod all around their shores. It's a very good point. You certainly shouldn't. The cod fishing there is fantastic, as the restaurants bear testament to. I'm afraid my time in Reykjavik is normally spent at a bar. But yes, you shouldn't be shy of going to do that. But sadly, on my way back out through Reykjavik, when I am normally overnighting, we're normally going out and sampling some of the restaurants and the bars, which is great fun. So anyway, as always, thank you very much indeed for tuning in. I hope it was of use and of interest. And if there's anything else that we can help with Iceland for the 2026 season, then please contact myself or Alex or Ollie or anyone in the office, actually, and we'd be delighted to help you. So look forward to catching up with you all soon.